to what everybody's used to. I maybe teach a little bit differently. It's probably going, I can't really speak on it. I just teach the way that I do. It's more conceptually and big picture and things like that, which gives us a little bit more position flex and multiplicity from that standpoint to put guys in different roles. So maybe that's it.
But coming from the NFL, you're kind of a matchup guy. I mean, to a certain extent, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest lesson I learned, I think, when I went to the NFL from college, was just how much it was to me. I used to say it was more like the NBA than it was anything else. Matchups and all that stuff was really important. That's definitely important. If you're going to go play against JJ, you better know where he's lined up every single play. So some of that still carries over. But right now for us, it's just about how do we improve fundamentally? How do we get a lot of young players? We lost a lot of really experienced veteran leadership guys last year that are, in training camps right now. So how do we get these young guys who are super talented up to speed, get them the reps they need so they have that game-like experience?
Matt, when you got here, I don't think any of us knew how big of a hugger you were.
I'm Italian, so it's kind of just what I do.
Okay. You seem to have developed some pretty strong relationships in a hurry. I know that that's a matter of time and trust, but have you been making a greater emphasis on that as you go to the college game? How have you seen it?
Yeah.
How's it compare to what you're used to at the NFL level, where maybe that's not the way it works? I don't know.
No, it certainly does. I mean, I have great friends and relationships with players that I've coached in the NFL, and we have great guys here. The players here they're just great young men, so you can't help but gravitate to them. And as a coach, that's my role, right? I want to mentor and coach and help develop young men, 18 to 22-year-old men in those stages of not only football but life. So it's a true joy for me just to be around them. They have that energy, they have that youthfulness about them. They're very into the game of football, which I love, so they want to learn. I love to teach it, and just being able to be in that situation where I can help them outside of the game is really important to me. I think I've said to a lot of them, look, I have kids now that look up to them, so it's my job to be able to do everything I can to help them be the best versions of themselves. So that's what, my kids are looking up to.
Yeah, it might seem obvious. I would imagine on August 1st, there's a different level of comfort and relationships and familiarity both ways, from players to you and you to the players. Is this camp different? How is it different than spring for you? Now that you have that built in a little bit.
I think you're always trying to develop the relationships and earn everybody's trust. I think it's really important that I earn their trust. I think they need to understand that I'm here to try to help them be the best version of themselves that they can be, and honestly they're helping me with a lot too. It's great to be able to lean on those guys and ask questions, and they're telling me really good information. So I just think that relationship is what we're continually building, and it's a process, and it'll be different now than it is August to September to December and forward. So that's the great part about the game. And I told him the other day, we were talking about relationships and how important they are, and it's one of the biggest things I think you miss when this game ends, and why a lot of people get into coaching and always want to be around the game is the games are great, the wins are great, the championships are all great, but you miss the locker room, you miss the camaraderie, you miss the friendship, you miss that time together. It's something that I just think is unique to the sport.
How much of your time have you spent just sort of watching college football generally since you've been here, just to try to figure out sort of what's in trend compared to the NFL and what you guys might see this year?
A lot. Watched a lot of film, and really started that process last year, with kind of a unique year for me last year. I watched a lot of NFL and a lot of college tape just for that reason. I think even if you're in the NFL, the matriculation of the players coming in, the game has changed. There is a lot more influence. There always is college influence in the NFL. And look, you're trying to play to the strengths of the guys that you get in the NFL, and they're coming from college. So what do they do well? And you want to study that. But being in this environment, obviously, we're watching that all the time, and we're taking a look at the tape of what is trending, what is, what do you have to be ready for? The biggest thing for me is really the differences, right? I think that's one of the biggest keys for me to study and make sure that I'm paying attention with the hash marks, just simple things like that, but formationally, some of the rules that are different. And then, you take the rules and then you coach from the rules. So how are we coaching everything and making sure that it matches up with how it's going to be officiated on the field?
Is the biggest difference the hash marks and the space?
That's a big one. It is a really big one. There's some formation and things that are a little bit different too, I would say, because of the hash marks, but being able to have some of those unbalanced looks and some of those unique sort of formations, I think are just different. And then just, whether it's the nuances in the rules, right, where we're allowed to jam and reroute and where we can't is a little bit different. I'm a little bit excited about what we can do. So those are the main ones.
Day 2 of camp, what are just your initial impressions, what you like out there, what you're seeing?
Yeah. I mean, I like our guys are really doing a great job with the installations. You know, we're going pretty quick, so they're coming in and they're pretty large. But I think our guys are handling that information on the field. And really, one of the things that's been awesome about that is even yesterday, the stuff that we put in, we kind of ran a little bit of that today, made a couple tweaks, and those corrections were handled really well today. So that to me is a sign of a smart team that can handle those adjustments, can be able to make those changes, which is what we're going to need to do during a game. So that's really encouraging. I thought yesterday we flew around really well. We attacked the ball well. We got some turnovers there. I know that when that happens, the next day the offense is gonna, it's gonna tighten down. You may not get the same effect, but I still felt like we were attacking the ball that way.
Did you mention you're gonna put the pads on tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
With you mentioned Caleb's ability to move around and communicate. What needs to happen with, say, Jalen and Malik to make sure that they can keep up?
Yeah. Biggest thing for them is just every single day to improve, and so we'll mark out things, certainly like communication. That is the biggest thing when you're a safety and you're playing in the middle of the defense. You have to be able to communicate to both sides. You have to be able to communicate to the linebackers. You have to tie in all of that coverage stuff together, and then with the motions and the formations. And I think for them, with that communication, the hardest thing is just getting the game to slow down, as things start to move. But that comes with game reps. We don't have game reps before we get to game 1, so we're going to have to get it in practice the best we can.
And then how do you make sure you're not predictable when it's like Caleb with Malik versus Caleb with Jalen? Because
Yeah.
there's different things that they can do, but
Yep.
just you can't be predictable with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-scout is really important there, but I think that, they are well-rounded players. They all can do some things that be in different positions and be in different alignments and still be productive. So making sure that we're conscious of that and continually moving them around because we don't want to just be in one situation where you always know what it looks like.
Matt, you're talking about the differences, hash marks. You just mentioned there's no games before you play Texas.
Yeah.
Like, just in general, how are you finding that adjustment in terms of the big differences between college life and NFL?
Yeah, I never really appreciated those preseason games in the NFL, but right now I'm wishing we had one. I think, we would say it all the time, like everybody needs preseason, everyone needs training camp, and certainly game day operation I think is one that is really important, and I thought that was great to be able to do that in the NFL. We got to hit the ground running when we get to week 1 and make sure that as a coaching staff, we're on point. We have good communication, whether it's from upstairs to downstairs, being able to see what's on the field, even just simple things like substitutions and packages going in and out and people being in the right spot. So we have to simulate that as we go through training camp to make sure, our guys are great. They've done it before. It's probably more me nervous than anything. I'm the one that's got to adjust and change. So I think they'll be fine. I'll be the one that'll be trying to figure it out.
Matt, to clip. You kind of plan out the next day. After 2 days, is there a position where you want to spend more time?
I'm going to wait till I go back and look at today's tape, and then we'll kind of evaluate that. I will always generally gravitate to the linebackers. That is my natural sort of like backer hood. That's where I kind of hang out. But once we get through today's practice, and again, it was a little bit more early down stuff that I want to take a look at and just make sure that we're sound. There's a couple things I saw at practice that I want to make sure that they looked a little bit loose to me, so I want to tighten up. I'll probably do that tomorrow.
To clarify what Caleb is doing, there are times where it looks like he is like in that nickel spot, and they're two deeper safeties. Do you call that a nickel? Like, what? I don't know.
It could be a couple different calls.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be a couple different looks or a couple different, just, sometimes based on formation.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something that maybe they're doing that we maybe change an alignment or switch something up.
And when you put him there, is that because you like him there? Is it to give those guys a chance to play deeper? Like, what's the sort of the balance between finding the spot for him versus like, we want to also just free these guys up to play?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Do we like him in a certain position and that's where we want to go? Maybe it's a matchup, maybe it's an alignment, maybe it's just depending on the motion. Sometimes some of the motion happens late. You got to be careful about trying to either spin or adjust or move late and getting caught out of position. Sometimes it's actually just better just to stay. Everybody stay where they are and then play the positions that they're in as opposed to trying to maybe overrun and kind of get out leveraged. So some of that has to do with some of the formation adjustments too.
Man, were you last year when you were a ship looking for a new port, so to speak, if you were watching that video, what is something you definitely changed about yourself or your approach or that you can kind of put your finger on?
Yeah.
Having that sabbatical.
That's a great question. For me, I think last year, a couple things. One, it was really going back to I got into coaching for a reason. You know, I left engineering to get into coaching because I just really wanted to teach and mentor, and how important my coaches were, especially in college. You know, my college coaches were to just growing up, you know, and being a young adult, a young man trying to figure it out. And so it was really a way to kind of give back. I want to give back and I want to help people. I just really want to help people and teach. Came from that background with my parents and stuff. So I think I had a good opportunity to kind of sit back and be like, hey, I got to get back to just, you know, getting the joy of being a great teacher and a great mentor and those relationships. And so that was a big thing for me. That was really important. And that's what a lot of it drew me back to the college game, to being around, you know, guys of that age, you know, and that be able to have that influence. I will tell you that also last year doing media, I have a much better appreciation for how difficult the job is for all of you in the media to, you know, do what you guys do every single day. Like that's not natural for me, but you know, the work that everyone puts into it from the media standpoint and to get the message out to the fans, right? And to be that connection between the coaches and the team and the fans, and to really also have that football mind, right? Where you're diving into the game and you're taking a look at schematics and scheme, and all of that is to me, that is an incredibly difficult job. And I would say I have a huge appreciation for that.
Players who were at media days last week really talked up Kenyatta Jackson as someone who stepped up as a leader. What kind of growth have you seen from him this offseason?
I would echo all of that. I think Kenyatta has just really from, day one that I walked in the building, stepped forward and said, okay, hey, let me be in front. Let me do the drill first. Let me learn, let me do the lift. Whatever it is, it's like, get me out in the front. Let me go compete. Let me push myself. I think that everyone sees how hard he is pushing himself, and you can't help but gravitate towards that, saying, this guy is working this hard, man. I got to get my stuff together. I got to go work as hard as he is, because, he is setting the standard as we go forward. And I think everybody feels that.
Great. Coach, thank you very much.
All right, appreciate it. Yep.